Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Supreme Cleveland Sports Show, which is a totally unique and original name that James and I came up with entirely on our own, not related to any other shows whatsoever. I'm Brian Fraley, and as usual, this is my co-host James Mistrucci. James, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm ready for football, man. I'm so ready for it.
Yeah, this felt like the natural day to kick the show off on NFL Kickoff Thursday. So why don't we just roll right into things? You guys are familiar with us. This is just a real casual NFL show we decided we wanted to throw together for people just to put some content out there. So we're going to focus on the Browns this year. We're going to meet once a week, probably going to be same time, same place. So yeah, we're excited to talk some football. Tonight we got the Bills and the Rams. So why don't we jump into that game? James, you got any thoughts about this game?
Well, it's going to be a very, I guess, energizing game. You look at it because the Rams, they won the Super Bowl. It's their first game. They're the reigning champions. They're playing the Bills. The Bills are a good team. I mean,
yeah,
no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. I mean,
nobody does. Absolutely nobody does.
Always a wild environment when the Bills are involved, especially with their fans. And it's going to be a very, very good game. I mean, the Rams, I think, are going to be, again, one of the better teams in the NFC, and the Bills, they're really good. So I think they're going to be good too. So I think it's going to be a very, good matchup for everyone. I don't expect a lopsided game, but, who knows?
Yeah, I see the spread right now. They've got Buffalo 2.5-point favorites. I think that's reasonable. But yeah, being on the road, it's a tough environment, but I tend to go against Super Bowl champions in their openers just because it seems like that Super Bowl hangover is a real thing. Buffalo is a really tough team. I mean, a lot of people are picking them to win the Super Bowl. A lot of people are picking Josh Allen to win MVP. So I think that they're going to come in and play a good game. The over-under is 52. I think that's a little low, personally. I think that this is going to be a shootout. In my opinion, these are two of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And these offenses are they're gonna do their thing. So I'm expecting a lot of points tonight and Buffalo in a close one.
Yeah, I expect the same. For any of you, betting people out there, any of you degenerates, hammer the over.
I tend to.
That's what I would do. Hammer the over because 52 does not seem like 26 points apiece. Really, like that's what you expect if you just split it down the middle. Like that does not seem like a lot of points for these teams. Like, I know good defenses, whatever, Aaron Donald, Von Miller, whatever, but come on.
Yeah. But I got my dad in here. He says I'll take the under. I think I'm feeling the over in this one. I like the points tonight. But teams can come out sluggish in their first game, but I just don't see that happening with these two teams. You know what I mean? It's not like the opener is. It's not the Texans versus the Lions. Like these are the two of the premier teams in their respective conference, and I really do think that this could be a preview of the Super Bowl too. So. I mean, I can't think of a really better way for the NFL to kick off the season on a Thursday night than with these two.
Yeah, I mean, this is really good. It's always good that I know they like to have the Super Bowl champion, at home for the Thursday night opener or whatever. But this is still a really good matchup, regardless of who the Super Bowl champion is. I mean, sure, it's very, like you said a little while ago. It's very possible that the Super Bowl thing for the Rams, it's a very emotional game. It's their first game. They put the banner up. They do all the, the pomp and circumstance and all the stuff for just the sake of ceremony. And a lot of times that gets the best of them. I mean, we saw a while ago when the Patriots did it. They had that big thing, and like Mark Wahlberg was there, and then they laid an egg. Like
it happens. It's just there's something about just the emotional release that happens for a team after achieving something that monumental. You know what I mean? And to try to come back and to match that energy after being at the highest point of all their careers, it's almost impossible to do. So yeah, I just think it's a really tough position to be in. I mean, I don't feel bad for them though. They just won the Super Bowl. So
I don't feel bad for them either. They won the Lombardi Trophy. They hoisted it at the end of the year. That was the team I wanted to win that game. Not just for because they're playing the Bengals, but petty reasons.
Many reasons. Yeah. Well, I know both of us were pretty high on Matt Stafford at the beginning of the season. We were ahead of the crowd in terms of this guy's elite.
Mhm.
Now that he's somewhere where he's got weapons and a line to protect him, like he's going to be dangerous. And he did exactly what we thought he would do. So, yeah, I'm
He did.
really excited for this game tonight. And I'm excited for both these guys' seasons. I don't know if Josh Allen could ever, perform up to the expectations that are being set for him this season. But I do think he's going to have a great year.
They are very lofty expectations. Let's be real here. I mean, a lot of times you see guys with lofty expectations. Oh, someone who hasn't done it before. Oh, he's going to be the MVP. And a lot of times, just like, well, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
So that happens. But I do think Josh Allen is someone who can actually play that well. And play up to that level. He was really close to being like at that level and having that, previously. But I think this is the time where you see him take that next step, and he's going to actually achieve what everyone expects him to. And as he continues to progress in his ability as a player, and as a leader of his team, and in what he's been able to accomplish on the field, it just makes me just a little bit more bitter each day as it goes by. After all the quarterback debates that everyone had on the internet, and podcasts, wherever, saying that Josh Allen shouldn't even be drafted in the first round. Why are we talking about him with the first pick? I'm like, I wanted the Browns to take him. And then now we're doing this retroactive, he would have done this here. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if you're an elite player, you're going to succeed no matter who the coach is.
I agree. Tell me if I'm wrong here, but Josh Allen coming out of college reminded me a lot of Ben Roethlisberger. He was kind of under the radar because he played at a smaller school. He's not on primetime television, but, bigger guy, total athlete, strong arm. Like it reminded me a lot of Big Ben coming out. And I just remember as a Browns fan, it's like, man, you don't want to let a guy like that slip by again. But, at the end of the day, we did end up making our decision and picking Baker Mayfield as the number one pick. And I think that's a good time to segue into the Browns game one, because we really do want to focus on the Browns here on this show. We made our picks for that. Talking about Josh Allen is a perfect segue into talking about Baker Mayfield, who's had a lot to say before this game. He seems to think that he's going to take care of business. And let me see, I'm pulling up the.
There was one fun quote I saw this morning while you're looking for that. Apparently, he is not aware, or he doesn't have an answer as to why the Browns moved on from him. I'm like, really, dude? Really?
Right.
You don't have an answer?
Yeah. I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours about a multitude of answers.
I get he's saving face a little bit because he's a prideful person, and there's nothing wrong with being a prideful person. It's just he's also a very egotistical person, and that's the part that rubs people the wrong way.
Exactly. And I don't have any problem with athletes having egos. They're professionals for a reason, but I do have a problem with it when the ego doesn't match the performance. You know what I mean? Like, you be who you can afford to be. You hear that said all the time by professionals in the league. And that was the thing with Baker that just kind of started the snowball effect of, the relationship crumbling, was just that he wasn't performing up to his own, words, let alone, coaches' standards and the fan standards and what have you. But what I was looking for is the spread. They've got Carolina as 1.5 point favorites at home. I think that's more than fair, being home field advantage. But I actually like the Browns to win this game. I like the Browns at an upset here.
I do like the Browns to win this game. Finally win in week one for the first time since Jeff Garcia was our quarterback. I'm pretty sure that's the quarterback. By the way, I bought that jersey. I was that fool who bought a Jeff Garcia Browns jersey. I still have it somewhere in storage.
I thought he was going to bring a little bit of that magic to Cleveland, but yeah.
I mean, what did I know at the time? I was like, 14, 15. My only experience of watching Jeff Garcia wasn't even really watching him, was playing with him and, Madden or whatever. And he's like, oh, look, and this is before they had the age. It was just years pro. He was like 32, but it said 7 years pro or 5 years pro or whatever. So, in that game, what it did is it messed with the thing, I guess whatever the way they processed the game, and you could play forever with him, even though he was 33 years old or whatever it was when he was on the Browns. It doesn't really matter. But he was mobile. He was agile. You're able to run with him. And that's what I like the most with him. And
Yeah,
hey, he's going to do that.
you were kind of leading me to my point with, about Jeff Garcia. Was like he kind of was ahead of the curve with that West Coast offense and being a mobile quarterback. I actually think that he would play really well in today's game.
Yeah, he's got enough mobility. I mean, he's a guy that he can run, but he doesn't rely on the run. And I think that's ultimately where you see a lot of these guys succeed now.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, Lamar Jackson's a big running type guy, but there are concerns with his passing ability, and that's part of the reason why he doesn't have a new contract yet. Like that and guaranteed money, all that other stuff. But that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
It's the guys that make plays with their legs, but ultimately it comes back to their arms. So you look at the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, even Russell Wilson. He's someone who's made enough plays with his legs, but he ultimately relies on his arm to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, you look at guys like Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts, like those guys are mobile, but they're both, pro style. They're going to throw the ball first. They're run second. But it does seem like running, even though it's not the primary focus, it does seem like it's part of what it takes to be an elite quarterback in the NFL today. Is you have to at least be mobile enough to get out of the pocket and make things happen. And Jeff Garcia would have fit, kind of right in today's game in that regard.
Yeah, the days of Peyton Manning being a statue back there, they're long gone. Okay, even Tom Brady was pretty statuesque for a large part of his career until he became a little bit more mobile. He's not like making plays with his legs, but he's maneuvering the pocket very well to be able to still find guys downfield and the occasional scramble. But it's the guys that are just statues back there. Those are long gone.
Yeah,
and someone who loves to play the Madden video game. That's sad because I just can't go and destroy quarterbacks 1,000 times in a row. I got to worry about some guy going running away and then me missing a tackle and giving up a 40-yard gain.
Yeah, when you played a statuesque quarterback, you could get like 12, 13 sacks and just make people rage quit. It was awesome. But yeah, to go back to this game, over under at 42.5 for this. And I do want to highlight real quick. Looks like my dad was ahead of the curve. He thought we were talking about Browns Panthers earlier. And the under. I don't hate that. I do not hate.
Yeah, I would take the under in this one.
Yeah, I love the under. I think 42.5. They stay under that easy. I'm just expecting sloppy. Knowing what I know about Baker Mayfield and being his first game in a new offense with a new head coach, and I'm expecting him to make some mistakes. And with Jacoby Brissett, same thing. He's coming into with a new coach and a new system, and he's a backup guy. We know that he's not starter caliber quarterback. So yeah, I'm expecting it to be sloppy. Really intrigued by Christian McCaffrey, what we're going to see out of him, how long he's going to last this year. But yeah, there's a lot of things to talk about regarding this game, and it's not just the Baker Mayfield talk. But I do think we would be remiss if we didn't mention the story about Baker allegedly saying that he was going to fuck the Browns up.
We got to talk about this. We have to mention it. About this.
We have to mention it. It does sound, hearing more of the story, like it was something like the reporter said something to him like, "Hey, I hope you beat those guys because obvious reasons. She wants them to lose." And he kind of in passing was just like, "Yeah, I'm going to fuck them up." So I don't think it was like as big of a deal as people allegedly made it out to be. But still, that just gives us a glimpse into the brain of Baker Mayfield. And part of the problem with Baker Mayfield is his unwavering confidence in his ability that I just don't understand. What do you expect from Baker in this game?
I expect him to make a couple plays. I expect him to make some mistakes because, let's be honest, that's who he is. I expect him at one point to taunt somebody. He's going to get a taunting penalty. We all know this.
Yeah.
I mean, the highlight of him, I saw the highlight of him taking that hit against the Bucks like 4 years ago where he got hit in the head or whatever, and him getting the face of the other player. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. Yeah. Why did I overlook this at the time? Because I did. I honestly did.
Yeah. But I think another interesting thing too is like, I wonder how many people on our team that haven't made statements about Baker, who have strong feelings about Baker, are going to be playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because not everybody in the locker room is a verbal guy. They're not all going to go out and say like, "Hey, he was a shitty teammate," whatever. And I think that we're going to find out who some of those guys are on Sunday.
Yeah.
We'll see who's chirping, and we're going to find out who really had an axe to grind with Baker. And I think it's a lot more people than are being vocal on our team.
Yeah, because I think what a lot of people on the team are doing is they're being very calculated now. They're approaching this. What they don't want to do is go out and make this, this big grand statement that end up looking like old takes exposed, or when the one guy went Browns is the Browns, the Steelers guy. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head right now. Juju. It was Juju. I can't remember if it was Juju or Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
But when Juju went Browns is the Browns, then they got destroyed. So what I think what they're trying to do is avoid that type of situation. All the comments have been very just right on the fence, right down the line. They're not saying anything either way.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying positive things about Baker, and at the end of the day, I think that it's a good thing. I think it's the right approach. This team should not be arrogant, cocky, too confident going into this season. This is going to be an interesting year for them. So the fact that they're kind of playing it close to the vest is, I think that's smart. I think it's wise as a team to just kind of they need to prove it on the field. This is a team that really needs to let their game do the talking. And I think that that's the road that guys like Myles Garrett chose. Was like, hey, I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. I don't need to do what Baker does. You know what I mean? And I think that's why a lot of them are taking the high road, just kind of to show we're past that. That's why we moved on from Baker. We don't want to be that anymore.
Oh, so you mean not coming out with a T-shirt about leashes off or whatever the hell it is that he came out with? That's such a preposterous shirt. Oh, and by the way, shout out Reflog or McNeil, whoever replied in the comments with just a blank T-shirt. Here's Nick Chubb's answer.
Yeah, that was great.
That was funny. That was good.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Guys like that, they're not going to come out and say anything. But I think it's going to be an interesting game. And what I am expecting to happen is you mentioned he's going to make a couple plays. Baker he's a high risk, high reward type of player. He's always going to make a play or two that makes you go oh, okay. And I think that's why there's so many people in Cleveland who maybe a little more casual or not. That's why they were a little higher on Baker, is because he does give you those glimpses that make you think damn, if you could put it together, you wouldn't be that bad. But I'm expecting him to make a couple plays. At the end of the day, I think 200 yards, 1 or 2 touchdowns with a pick. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people on Browns Twitter that are going to say that they wish that he was still in Cleveland, and they're going to overrate his performance, because I don't expect the Brissett, to go and set the world on fire with his receiving core. I don't see that happening. So there's a very good chance that Baker's numbers are much better than Jacoby's.
I mean, he's going to, and what I think ultimately is going to happen is that they're going to have some play action play near the goal line, and he's going to, do his trademark 100 mile an hour bullet pass to his tight end. In this case, it would be Tommy Tremble. Okay. And he's going to catch some 5-yard touchdown that was thrown way too fast for no reason. Okay. Yeah. That's what he does. And a lot of the yards he's going to end up accumulating in this game, I think, are going to be yards after the catch. I mean, we talked about this, a year ago on a different show early on in the season. Yards after catch, a lot of his completions are coming short, and it's all players making plays. And that's honestly been the story of the past 2 seasons for him is Yak. Yeah, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with Yak, but when you're a guy that survives off, and that's the only way you can get anywhere with it, that becomes a problem. Okay. Yeah,
we talked about what it takes to be an elite quarterback in today's game too. Part of that is pushing the ball downfield. You have to be able to push the ball downfield. So if you're a guy that's living off of these short passes and guys getting yards after the catch, it's great that they're helping pad your stats, but that's not what elite teams are looking for right now. They're looking for quarterbacks that can push the ball down the field and really stretch defenses out. And I just don't think that he has the ability to do that. So
he really doesn't. I know a lot of people think that Baker has a strong arm. I don't think he has a weak arm. I just think his arm is overrated. And that's just because, like what I said, he throws the ball 100 miles an hour to a guy 5 yards down the field. Everyone's like, he's got a cannon. I'm like,
Yeah.
Well, some touch, and he's not reaching behind him, or he's not having to absorb the ball instead of be able to catch and run. I mean, there were
Yeah.
so many times where he threw the ball way harder than it needed to be, and it took the runner off course just a little bit, and like a little
Yeah,
touch.
and I mean, a lot of the Baker supporters say, "Well, look at how many drops he had. Look at how many drops he had." And yeah, I'll give you that. We've had some terrible receivers that have dropped some really bad balls, but a
Mhm.
lot of those drop balls came from him just really overcooking the pass.
Yeah,
And you can't expect Dearness Johnson to be able to catch 100-yard fastball on a 5-yard out. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like you just can't. And I think that a product of that was, it was on Baker a little bit. It wasn't all on Baker, but there's definitely something to that. A lot of his interceptions and drop balls come from him just throwing the ball way too hard,
Mhm.
and
It-
that
it
led
was-
to a lot of inconsistency in his play. And I think that that's what will continue for him. He's gonna
it's
continue to make big plays from time to time. He'll win a game or two, and people will get high on him. But at the end of the day, he's always going to be a guy that's going to live off of those short passes and those guys, doing the work after the catch.
and he's in a situation in Carolina where he has Christian McCaffrey, and that's fantastic. That's someone perfectly suited to help Baker in his, I guess, deficiencies in his abilities as a passer. Christian McCaffrey can live off of Yak. I mean, he can also make plays downfield, but he can make a ton of yards and make Baker's numbers look better because the yards after the catch, and that's great for him. It's always with the concern with McCaffrey's health, and always with the concern with his ability is like he's a really good runner, but he's not like a prototypical between the tackles type guy.
Right.
And so you look at the matchup with the Browns. The Browns don't have great defensive tackles, but again, McCaffrey, he can run up the middle, but he's not Nick Chubb or Derrick Henry. If we're facing one of those two guys, I'd be concerned this week, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that you mentioned that he's going to make a lot of catches in this offense with Baker. Like another thing we know about Baker is he's captain check down too.
Mm-hmm.
He loves to check down to his backs. So I agree. I think that there's a chance that Baker and him connect for a lot of yards this season. And McCaffrey he reminds me more of a Marshall Faulk type guy than a Derrick Henry or one of these powerful backs. Like he's going to be a guy that, in a way, I think Baker can make McCaffrey a little bit better in a sense that he's going to give him the ball more than an elite quarterback would.
Because of the short throws, the checkdowns. I mean, we all know the issues Baker has as a quarterback. Okay, he's too short, which means the linemen get in his face and he can't see down the field, resulting in finding a lane to the check down or dumping it off to the side. Okay. Yeah. We're 4 years in. We can't play you can't say he's too short, Carter. He's too short. He can't see. Okay. This is a fact. Yeah. Like, this is where we're at now.
The numbers themselves with things like that, and when you look at the batted balls and all the plays where, he throws it into the back of his own tackle. I mean, the film is out there. The numbers are on paper. Like we know that that's a fact for Baker. Josh, our buddy, says it feels like Baker is in an offense that is really tailored to his strengths now. And I do think that that's a good point. It is. But what are his strengths, though? That's the problem. Tailored to his strengths is a good thing if he has strengths. But I don't know what he does particularly strong other than maybe the play action pass game.
So this is one of the more divisive topics about Baker Mayfield when it comes to discussions about him on the internet, okay? Because everyone remembers what he did in college. Did a lot of shotgun stuff. Did a lot of, quick RPO throws, okay? If you remember, we tried that in 2019 with him. Granted, Freddie Kitchens was a disaster, but we saw him attempt that style of offense, and he was dreadful, okay? Yeah. Granted, he was also 20 pounds overweight at the time because everyone remembers all those shirtless pics of all the other players and quarterbacks looking nice and cut, and it looks like he just finished a 24-pack of Coors Light.
And everybody wanted to say, well, look at Tom Brady's combine photo. I remember everybody was saying that, and it was like,
but look at Tom Brady now. That's the difference. Look at Tom Brady now. That's ultimately what it comes down to. There are a lot of parody accounts. I remember at one point there was a fat Baker Mayfield Twitter account, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
No, but he was out of shape. He was overweight, and so that didn't help either. But we saw what he looked like in that type of offense. Okay, we've seen what he's looked like in this other type of offense, and and again, what it comes down to is height. Okay, when you're starting back there, you're already at a disadvantage because of that's how the world works. Okay, that's how it works. When you're farther away from something, you're gonna have a harder time seeing it. Okay, so that's why you saw so much, I guess, importance placed on having Baker lined up under center in Cleveland under Kevin Stefanski. And so
Yeah.
he can see down the field. He can see the adjustments the defense is making. When you got your linemen, because tackles just, they just kind of crouch now. They don't even get down into a stance anymore. Same with guards for the most point, and you're standing back there, you're going to see stuff's going to get blocked.
Yeah.
And, you're not going to see it. And any sort of change that happens after the snap, like, defenses disguise what they're doing all the time. They do it even more so against Baker Mayfield because they know he can't read after the snap. Okay?
Yeah, it's a really strong argument that you make. Like the part of the reason isn't that he's not able to read defenses. It's literally he can't see them. And that's problematic when you can't see where guys are and who's creeping to the line and who's not. And I mean, you hear the great quarterbacks and they talk about, they look at the whites of guys' knuckles and like the amount of attention to detail that quarterbacks, pay to the defense to try to break things down it's essential. And he doesn't have that ability to do it at the line unless he's under center, like you said. So yeah, that's a really good point. But so you're just not buying that the Carolina.
I'm not buying this whole thing because I mean we've seen 4 years of Baker Mayfield now. The one good year he had, which was really half of a good year, was under Kevin Stefanski not throwing the ball.
Yeah. We were a run-heavy offense. Nick Chubb. The ball to Nick Chubb was the game plan.
It was Nick Chubb. It was Kareem Hunt. It was lots of play action.
Yeah.
I agree. We're going to Matt Rule and Ben McAdoo. Like, Matt Rule, he looks like one of the worst hires over the past couple of years. The dude looks like a fraud. Okay, he does not look good at all.
No.
And the less said about Ben McAdoo, the better, because he is not good at all either.
Yeah, so I think that his fate is directly attached to the play of Baker Mayfield too, which I find interesting. I find interesting that they're willing to put that much, stake on Baker because it's a fact. Like if this year doesn't go well for them with Baker, like he's gone. He doesn't stand a chance. He's already on the hot seat. So.
Well, I mean, his options were what? Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield? I mean...
Yeah, not much out there.
I mean, they're not really getting the whole bunch. I mean, like, what are you going to do? Trade for Jimmy G?
Yeah.
He's also not the answer.
No. And I mean, this is part of the reason why, and I know it's not fun to talk about, but, like, this is part of the reason why the Browns made the decision they did to take a chance on a guy like Deshaun Watson is because there's not much out there. Like, elite quarterbacks are as hard to come by as anything in all of sports. And one thing that we are seeing more and more often now is like, you're not seeing the guys that used to make it to the Super Bowl and get away with the win. You're not seeing the Trent Dilfers and, these guys that win Super Bowl. It just doesn't happen anymore. Like if you want to win a Super Bowl, you need an elite quarterback. I mean, look at the Rams. They came so close and then they get Matt Stafford and now they're there, You're always an elite quarterback away from going to that next level. And that's why, the organization was willing to take a chance and say, hey, you know what, we'll let this play out and hope for the best and go forward with Deshaun if we can. And at least now we kind of have a sense of what things look like. But to me, I just wanted to mention that because it is important to show, like, it's not easy to find a good quarterback. And when you look at a guy like Matt Rule bringing in a guy like Baker Mayfield, it just goes to show, like, these decisions are not easy to make.
They're not. And, you talk about Matt Rule and his future being tied to, Baker Mayfield, and best of luck to everyone involved in that situation there. But honestly, let's kind of reverse things back a little bit. Okay. Before they made the decision to acquire Deshaun Watson, we can all pretty much assume everyone knows sports, everyone knows football. Nothing was, explicitly said or reported, but we can all see the writing on the wall sometimes. Like, if this is going to be your guy, he fails again, you guys are done. Like, you that directive was given. Like, if this is going to be your guy, and you guys don't get it done again, you're all gone.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why, like, there might have been a little bit of meat to the story about the way that Kevin Stefanski handled the end of last season with Baker, because he knew the writing was on the wall for him too. Like
Mhm.
I cannot put my future as an NFL head coach in the hands of this guy.
Mhm.
And he, kind of exposed him, and I think at the end of the day, it was the right decision to move on from Baker. I understand why people aren't happy with the decision they made completely. But at the end of the day, in terms of football and wanting to win games, they did what they had to do, So
Mhm.
that's all I think I really care to say about the situation before the season begins. I don't know about you, but I think it
That's
was,
pretty much where I'm at too.
yeah,
It was a decision that had to be made. Okay, some guys they wear out their welcome.
yeah,
Some guys you get to the point where it's like, okay, we need you to do a little more, and they simply can't. I mean,
yeah,
we saw the Rams move off of Jared Goff. Okay, they
yeah.
want to
We've
they
seen
they have
how,
a guy whose limitations are very very similar in terms of gameplay ability as Baker Mayfield's. Okay,
yeah,
those are the
very,
guys that you're not winning because of, you're winning with.
mm-hmm,
And when you get to a certain point where, like, look back to how just star-studded our offense was.
yeah.
That was the most
We were loaded.
ridiculously stacked offensive skill player set I have seen outside of the Bucks that won the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was phenomenal. He had every single tool at his disposal to be successful.
and he was a
So
bum.
yeah, so I don't have
So I
I
mean,
don't have any remorse about the situation. I think we had to move on from Baker. I get that people aren't happy with who they chose to move forward with.
that's
But
understandable. It's
at the end of it,
understandable.
yeah, totally understandable. Just we would be it wouldn't be responsible to move forward with the show and not at least address the situation.
Yes.
So, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it. And the one thing I would say to Browns fans is don't meet your heroes, and you don't have to like people to root for them as a Browns fan. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to get a 53-man roster of total angels in the NFL. It's not going to
Oh,
happen.
you're not. You're not.
And and
There's
it's unfortunate, but look, like you don't have to root for him. You can root for the Browns and not root for him. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
I,
it's a
I
shitty
currently
situation.
root for the Browns and don't root for one player and one of the coaches. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going out there and buying a Deshaun Watson or a Kareem Hunt jersey,
yeah.
but I'm going to watch every Browns game. So, we have to mention it and talk about it. But yeah, so I think we're on the same page with game
Mhm.
one. I do think the Browns win an ugly game. But yeah, do you want to run through the schedule quick and kind of set the bar for what we think we expect for the Browns this season?
Yeah, I mean that's a good way to, I guess, proceed. You look at a game we both think that they should win. I mean, I think luckily for having to, I guess, go back and have Jacoby Brissett fill in for 11 games, the first 11 games aren't that bad overall.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
there are opportunities
let's
to
take
win.
it month by month here. We'll do it month by month. So September we have the Panthers on the road, and then we have the Jets and the Steelers at home. So right there, I like the Browns in 2 out of 3 of those games.
I really do too. I mean, honestly, in the world where everything goes right, nobody makes mistakes. They go 3-0 right there. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
In a world where Jacoby Brissett gives you the type of performance we got from Baker Mayfield in 2020, where he was able to manage the game, not make a whole bunch of mistakes, they're 3-0. Okay,
Yeah.
but stuff happens. It's not a perfect world. We can't live in that have to thread the needle and have zero margin for error world. So I think winning 2 out of the first 3 is more than, I guess, acceptable, more than fair.
I honestly think that this is one of the months that is going to be the better months for the Browns because as we move forward, we'll see how things change. But you mentioned the first 11 games, so let's get to the month of October has 5 more games.
Yeah.
So that puts us to 8 games. So we've got Falcons, Chargers, Patriots, Ravens, Bengals. Out of those 2, Falcons and Ravens are the only ones on the road. This is where it starts to get a little interesting.
Gets a little more difficult. Level of opponent increases. They get a little better. Okay. But having those home games against some of those better opponents maybe evens out a little bit, levels the field, kind of helps you out a bit because you play the game in Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta stinks. Okay,
Yeah,
if they have no business losing to Atlanta, you lose to Marcus Mariota in 2022. What are you doing? Okay,
yeah, I agree.
The only real person I'm scared of on that offense is Kyle Pitts. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. So right now we're right together. I have the Browns at 3-1 after 4 weeks headed into that home game against the Chargers. But this is a game that I think this is where things start to get hairy during the Brown season. And I think that game at home against the Chargers is going to be one of those wake up moments for the team because that's going to be the first real test that we have this year.
Yeah, that's a high powered offense. That's a game where you get ran out of your own building.
Yeah,
you lose by multiple touchdowns. That's what this game feels like. Okay, hey, maybe this Browns defense is a lot better than I think it's going to be. Okay, maybe the middle of the defense isn't the black hole that I think it's going to be because you look at the defense and
I've got the depth chart up in front of me. I printed out the defensive depth chart for that reason, and it's not strong in that area.
No, it's kind of gross.
Yeah, it is. It
is. And I kind of mentioned it and I wrote about it and something I posted on This Is Believeland yesterday, the repeatability of what Jadeveon Clowney was able to do last year. Injury wise, production wise.
Right. There's a lot of reasons why he could have a step backward this year.
He avoided the injury bug. He was actually able to produce last year, but he hasn't been able to avoid the injury bug historically over his entire career for the most part.
Right.
And his production was terrible. But, just looking at the defense, looking at the defensive front, kind of concerned about the game because, Justin Herbert is a dude.
Yeah, I don't have picking MVPs on the show sheet for today, but Herbert's one of those guys that I think very capable of winning the MVP this year.
He's in the conversation.
I'd say he's top 3 on my list. So yeah, I think he's the real deal. I think they had one of the better off seasons in the NFL. The Chargers, they only got better. So yeah, I think we lose that game big. And then the next one, we play Billy B and the Patriots, which is never an easy game, no matter who's the quarterback for that team. That's another game that I think that we'll struggle with. And ultimately, I have us losing that game too. So through 6 games now, I have us at, 3-3. 3-3. Yeah. So you on the same page with the Patriots game, or you think we can edge that one?
I had coin flip for the Patriots game only because I think the Browns are a better team overall than the Patriots. It's just that Belichick factor that would tip the scales of the Patriots. And, you look at a quarterback like Mac Jones. I like Mac Jones, but I think we have a pretty good idea of the tier he's ultimately going to fall in.
Yep.
He's not going to be elite. He's not going to be that next level. He's going to be like that one right below that next level, that level of just below elite. So elite, good, then.
Right. And if there's a head coach who can win with a quarterback, we talk about that all the time. Can you win because of or win with? Belichick's a guy who can win with a guy like that. So that's why this was one of the hardest ones for me to pick on the schedule. I have us in a close loss in that game. And then, the next week we go right into Baltimore and get back into divisional play. That is not going to be an easy game on the road against the Ravens.
No. I don't think the Browns win that game. Barring something just magically, just falling apart with that Ravens offense. Yeah. I mean, you look at all the obstacles the Ravens had going into last season, and they were still a better offense than the Browns were.
Yeah.
I mean, what running back were they on? And they still were able to just be a constant headache.
Yeah, this is a team that I think a lot of people are letting fly under the radar this year. I think that they are a real threat to win the division again. I expect a regression for the Bengals, not to get ahead of ourselves and move on to that game. But, I like the Ravens as the favorite in this division this year, personally. I think that's going to be a real tough game on the road. And, I have us losing that game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I look at the Ravens. I think the Ravens are probably going to end up winning the division, like you said.
Hmm.
Um, I like the Bengals, but they haven't proved it to me yet to give
Right.
them the same respect that I've given the Ravens and the Steelers I have for the better part of it, 20 years.
Right.
Okay. You've heard me say it before. The Ravens are the Ravens until they're not. I said with the Steelers are the Steelers until they're not. The Bengals have not achieved that level of, I guess,
They have real. They have.
analysis from me.
Yeah. No, they have flash in the pan potential. But
Mhm.
I will say this about the team: I do think they got better in the offseason.
Oh, they
But
did.
just because you get better, though, doesn't mean you're going to repeat success. Like it's not
Mhm.
easy to repeat the level of success they had in the postseason last year. So yeah, I think that they're going to be a good team and they're going to compete for the division. But I
Mhm.
do think that ultimately the Ravens edge them out for the division.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
with you
but yeah, to move right into Week 8, this will be our last game before the bye week. We have the Bengals at home on Monday Night Football. So
there.
this is a big game. Um, I have a loss here for us. I just don't see us on Monday Night Football beating Joe Burrow with Jacoby Brissett. If this game was later in the year and Deshaun was playing, it might be different.
Mhm.
But at this
Yeah,
stage of the season, I expect the Bengals to beat us in that game.
I do too. Again, unless the Bengals suffer one of the stereotypical Super Bowl hangovers and they just don't work. It's just all dysfunctional. Nothing's clicking.
Yeah.
And by the way, great job by the schedule makers. The two teams who have the colors that most resemble Halloween playing on Halloween. Excellent.
Oh, I did not
Okay.
catch that. That's a good call.
Okay.
That is
Excellent.
a
Excellent
Halloween game.
job by the schedules makers to have the colors of Halloween play on Halloween. Okay.
What a better way to head into the bye week than a Halloween game against the Bengals at home on Monday Night Football. That's
It's a
sweet.
great
Yeah, I'm real excited for that game. It's gonna be fun. But I do think that we get handled in that game.
same.
And just to kind of keep everybody up to date on the score, that's 4 losses in a row I have for the Browns headed into the bye week.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. So, at this point,
Maybe a Patriots upset. I'm with you. They can potentially win that Patriots game.
they're at, so we
But
have
yeah,
3-5, 4-4.
so by the bye week, we both got them in the 3-5, 4-4 area.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of other experts in the field have them at too.
It's reasonable, honestly, and
Yeah.
that's what we have to come down to. The way I've looked at the schedule this entire year is, be it from the more safer side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Be reasonable. Don't have lofty expectations. Oh, Baker's gone. We're good now. And they're like, okay, but that's what's one piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
We didn't swap out Brissett for Baker and him throwing to Odell and Jarvis and Austin Hooper as much as people don't like Austin Hooper. Okay. By the way, saw a terrible take the other day saying that Jesse James was going to be better for the offense than Austin Hooper ever was. I'm like, Austin Hooper had more catches and yards last year than Jesse James' last 3 combined. But yeah, go off.
I'd keep him over him and Njoku, honestly, but that's a whole other story for another day.
But looking at that, he has lesser weapons to throw to, so that factors into the equation. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And so reasonable, safe. I think this is more than reasonable, more than safe, and I'd rather be on the safer side of things than have loftier expectations and being like let down again.
I mean, it's a secret to life. The lower your expectations are, the higher your serenity level, always.
Serenity now.
Especially serenity now, especially with a team like the Browns. And I think for a season like this, with all the turmoil and everything that's surrounding it, tempering our expectations is probably a good thing to do. So, yeah, I think headed into the bye week, right around the 500 area, it would be successful. So,
yes,
by any means.
I'm 100% with you there. You get to or at around, however you want to call it, 500. That's a success, especially considering the unknown status of what your quarterback was going to be up until a month ago.
Right.
You consider just the amount of distractions you've had. A lot of them have been self-inflicted, okay, but there's been other things that are not football related that you've had to deal with. And in week 1, having to go up against your former quarterback who was very online, very public, very just
kind of a nightmare.
look at me. It's not the most ideal scenario. So again, just be conservative with your expectations. Be safe. You know what? If they do better than what I do, I will be happy.
Yeah, same. I'd be the first one to say I'm glad that I was wrong.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's going to be that kind of year for the Browns. We're really going to be figuring it out in these first 11 games without our starting quarterback. Excuse me. So why don't we roll through November? Start November with the bye week, and then we are on the road against the Dolphins, on the road against the Bills, and then home against the Buccaneers. Just a brutal November.
It's a very brutal November. You started off, first of all, we got to go take on the Dolphins and Tuanon, okay?
So funny.
I really don't know what to think of the Dolphins. I don't know where you're at with the Dolphins. I think they're going to be okay. I see a lot of people putting lofty expectations on them. I'm like, and again, this comes with overrating quarterbacks, in my opinion. I think Tua's okay. I think he's fine. Okay.
Yeah, I saw Darius Butler on Pat McAfee's show yesterday. He picked the Dolphins to win the division, and I think that's a stretch, man.
That's a choice.
Yeah, I will say this about Tua, though. I'm not completely out on him yet. I think he can be a serviceable quarterback in the NFL. And I think with the weapons that he has around him, it's going to be interesting. I think it could go either way. I honestly would not be surprised if this team stinks, but I also wouldn't be all that surprised if him and Tyreek Hill have a good connection and, the offense starts rolling and they make things work with Tua. So I really don't know what to think of this team, but
adding Tyreek Hill is huge.
Yeah, this is the only game that I see as winnable in November, though. It's that game.
Agreed. It's that game. Just because you look at the Dolphins at this point in 10 games, and I don't know where their bye week is. Let's just say they play 9 games. They could be 7-2, or they could be 2-7. You really don't know what you're going to get out of this team. It's it's the Dolphins, and is Tua going to take that next step with having an elite or near elite receiver in Tyreek Hill?
Right.
I mean, who knows? Didn't do anything for Baker having an elite receiver, but you never know.
Right. I do think Tua is much more accurate than Baker, though. So
he is. He also has touch, so that also helps. But
he has forced touch though because he has a limp noodle for an arm. But
he does, and I think. Ultimately, if I had to think of what Tua's probably going to end up be for his career, I know that's not really the conversation we're having, but we're kind of going. I think ultimately he's going to be a guy who's going to end up be like a Mariota or a Teddy Bridgewater or just one of those guys who he's serviceable, he's good, he'll win you some games, but he's not going to be the guy. That's ultimately where I think he's going to be.
Same. I think so too. I do think that roster is good enough. That they can compete and win some games. But like I said, I also can see that situation not working out at all. But yeah, I think that Bills game and that Buccaneers game to end out, that's the last 2 games we have before we get our quarterback back. And that's a brutal way to end things off for Jacoby.
Unless Tom Brady gets hurt, unless Josh Allen just does not play well, unless the Bucs are a disaster. Bucs have a new head coach. They could be just a complete nightmare for all you know.
A lot of changes.
There are a lot of changes for the Bucs.
Brady's got all kinds of shit going on too. He said it himself.
He's good. You just said that. He's been there. He's been away. There's the rumors of him being on Masked Singer, which were hilarious, but not true. That was funny when everyone thought that's what was going on for a minute. But, and apparently he's having arguments with his wife about him returning and all this other stuff. It's like, listen, if there is a season for Tom Brady to underwhelm, it would be this one. But I don't expect that to happen just because it's Tom Brady. What are we doing? Yeah. But if there's a perfect storm or perfect combination for Tom Brady to not play well, it's this.
Yeah.
It is literally this.
And the thing about Tom Brady, too, is he has absolutely nothing left to prove. So, I could almost see at any point in the year him just being like, I'm done. I just isn't going how I wanted it to.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand the team over to the next guy, and I'm going to move on. So, I think this is going to be a really interesting year for the Bucks.
Mhm.
I do think that they, when you have Tom Brady, they're still going to be a team that's going to make a lot of noise this year, and
Oh, yeah.
I still think that they're going to beat the Browns handily without Deshaun.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I have us at 1-2 for the month of November. I'll give us a win against the Dolphins.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you there. So at the end of November, we're at what, 4-7, 5-7.
Yeah, right in that ballpark. I have the loss against the Patriots, so that makes mine a little different. So
Yeah.
let's see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 wins and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 losses. So
Yeah,
4
so
and
4
7.
and 7. And honestly, we texted back and forth. I've had conversations with other people. I'm like, I think 4 wins is a very safe, very reasonable, very manageable number for wins with Brissett, without
Yeah.
Watson.
I mean, it's hard for any team to go 500 with their backup quarterback. So I think it's reasonable. It's not us hating on the Browns or being doom and gloom or anything like that. I think when you have a guy like Jacoby as your leader and you know that he's temporary, it's just a weird position for a team to be in. I think best case scenario is maybe 5 and 6. But yeah, I think 4 and 7 is reasonable. But yeah, this December is when we get Deshaun Watson back. So we will have him for the final 6 games of the year. We start with December with the Texans.
Having his first game back in Houston,
another nightmare situation.
Yeah.
Us opening with the Panthers and Baker, nightmare. And then Deshaun opening against the Texans, it's a nightmare. It's just a bad.
That's rough. But you don't know, who's going to be even available for the Browns at this point because injuries happen. Injuries to key players happen.
Yeah.
The Browns are already down their starting center. That's huge. A guy they were banking on to fill in for the now retired J.C. Tretter.
Right.
So next guy up. So you're at what ideally was your third option as your center.
Yeah. Yeah, I think ultimately the Browns are going to win this game, but I do think it's going to be a weird atmosphere. It's going to be weird for Deshaun for his first game back. But I also could see it being a game that he comes in and just absolutely lights the world on fire because Houston Texans are just not that good. So I will say this: if he comes in and we blow Houston out and he throws for 400 yards, I would say temper your expectations for the rest of the year because this is not a good team.
No, the Texans are not good at all. I'm sorry, Mills Mafia. Okay, you really don't instill fear.
It was fun, but but it's not a winnable situation.
No, the Texans aren't a good team. And honestly, the range of where Deshaun could end up playing in this game is literally extremes on both ends. He could look like a guy who hasn't played football in almost 2 years, or he looked like a guy that's been ready to go for a very long time. Okay.
Yeah, it's a situation that you never know until it happens. You cannot really predict what his gameplay is going to be like. We're all going to find out together. That's going to be it's going to be a wild ride those last 6 games, and I think we're lucky in a way to start against a winnable opponent, but obviously from a PR standpoint, it's a nightmare.
Listen, if you've been tired of the discourse about the whole situation during the offseason, that week is going to be hell. Just like this week has been hell leading with Baker.
So we'll roll right into it. We got the Bengals after that on the road in Cincinnati. This game, I'm saying it's going to be a big L for us. I think that I expect Deshaun to play fine against the Texans, and I expect us to win. Maybe 2 touchdown passes, maybe 250, 300 yards, whatever.
Yeah.
But this game, I expect it to be like his welcome back to the NFL game.
Oh, yeah. He'll go 10 for 23. He'll have 3 picks, get sacked 4 times.
I think this is where it gets ugly for him.
Yeah, it's going to be a hostile environment against not that Houston's not going to be a hostile environment because that one is, but it's going to be against a division opponent who's going to, they're going to taunt the crap out of him that entire game. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
That's the reality. Okay. And so that's going to happen. the Bengals are going to be fired up for that game. Oh, this is our first taste of welcome Deshaun Watson to the AFC North. Get
Yep.
ready, big boy. It's coming. Like, that's what they're going to be thinking.
Yeah, and Joey Burrow too. He seems like the kind of guy that he's got a chip on his shoulder. He wants people to think that he's the best. He reminds me a lot of Aaron Rodgers in that way. So I expect him to go into this game and him wanting to be like, look, like I'm the guy in this division, like whether you're here or not. So yeah, I think that one's going to be ugly. And then we come home to play the Ravens, and this is where I expect it to even back out. I think that this is a winnable game. I have us losing the first game against the Ravens. I'm going to go against the grain and have us winning one of two against them this year, either the first or the second. I tend to think that this will be a bounce back game for Deshaun. 3 games into it, that'll be him finally being able to kind of find a groove in the offense. And it's going to be the stage of the season where Baltimore's probably already in the driver's seat. Mm-hmm. And I think because of that, it's a winnable game.
I do think it's a winnable game, but I've gone back and forth on this game for multiple reasons. It's going to be week 3 of Deshaun Watson being back. You have literally no idea how he's going to look those first 2 games.
Yeah,
and it's one of 2 games for the Browns on their schedule where the time says to be determined. Okay,
right.
Which I hate. I hate that because you have no idea when that game's going to happen.
Yeah, okay. and it makes a big difference. It
does. It really does,
especially. It being a home game, you want to have a great atmosphere against a team like that, whether it's during the day, whether it's at night, that affects things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the way I've looked at it from, I guess, from the start, and I guess I'll stick with that is I picked this game as a loss only because of I view Baltimore as a superior team. I still think Deshaun Watson's still going to be knocking rest off at this point.
Yeah, he's
still going to be working on getting actual in-game chemistry with all of his teammates still, and and having, games against the Bengals and Ravens back to back after playing the Texans, that's going to be rough. Like if it was Bengals, Texans, and Ravens, I would feel a lot more confident about this game against the Ravens. But since it's Texans, Bengals, Ravens,
it's a good point.
Just the 2 really good teams back to back. If there was that nice little buffer game, I would feel a lot more confident.
Well, let me make it clear too. I think Baltimore's the better team, like hands down. Yeah. This is just one of those real low confidence picks where it's like it's the NFL. There is parity any given Sunday. Yeah. I just expect this to be the one game on the Ravens schedule where they lay an egg. I don't know why. Just call it a feeling. So where I differed from you on that Patriots pick and picked a loss, I'm going to go against the grain and pick a win here against the Ravens.
All right.
And then we've got Saints to finish out December. Christmas Eve at 1 p.m. against the Saints at home. I like us to win that game.
I do too. I mean, granted, Jameis Winston, very electric quarterback. You have no idea what you're going to get from him from play to play. Right. That dude is the Ryan Fitzpatrick experience all wrapped into one from play to play. Fitz magic to Fitz tragic at any given moment. That's exactly what he is. He's just overdrive Ryan Fitzpatrick. Okay.
Yeah.
He looked pretty good before he got hurt last year. He did. I'll give him that. I'll give him that. And, Michael Thomas is supposed to be back. They have Jarvis Landry now. Alvin Kamara is really good. So, I mean, again, this is what's going to come down to is how's our defense going to be looking? How's our secondary going to be playing? Is Greedy Williams even still going to be on the field? Until Greedy Williams shows, consistent long-term health, that's going to be a question about him. Right. So, having those type of questions, not knowing how this defense is going to play, how they're going to adjust. I mean, you really don't know what we're going to get out of this game against a team that we know is going to look to throw the ball around.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be an interesting year for the Saints. I'm rooting for Jarvis. I really want him to have a successful year down there. It's always interesting when Jameis Winston is in the equation. He's a guy that has all the talent in the world, but also has all the ability to just shit up the place. So you just never know what you're going to get with him. But I've seen some people going out on a limb and picking him to win MVP this year as a dark horse, and I think that's a little wild.
It's a tad aggressive, but if you're looking for that dark horse long shot pick to place not a lot of money on to cash out a ton, that's not the worst bet. That's not the worst bet.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the people are saying that Kirk Cousins is going to win. I mean, I don't know what drugs you're taking, but can I have some?
Yeah, exactly. I'm more on the Jameis Winston one than that one for sure.
Yeah.
And then we finish out the year here in January. We got 2 road games. We're on the road against the Commanders and then on the road against the Steelers. I've got us winning out. I have us winning the last 4 games of the year, which now I'm starting to feel a lot worse about that Ravens game because I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I think we have a better team than the Commanders. I think that's a game that Deshaun Watson, he can go in there and win. He'll finally be kind of finding a groove by that point this season. I don't expect the Commanders to be in the playoff hunt, so this game isn't going to mean much of anything. If anything, they might be on the tank front.
Yeah, they might be in the coaching change world. You don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm actually going to go win and then loss against the Steelers to end the season.
That's what I have, honestly, for those last 2 games. Is a winning against the Commanders and loss against the Steelers. Playing in Pittsburgh regardless sucks. Playing in Pittsburgh the last week of the season sucks even more. Okay. Oh, yeah. But looking at the Commanders game real quick, their quarterback's Carson Wentz.
Right.
Am I supposed to be scared of Carson Wentz? I'm sorry.
No.
He is what he is at this point. Okay. He's a guy who's not very exciting and is injury prone.
Right. Yeah. And to just kind of go to break this down into like 2 separate seasons, the season with Jacoby versus the season with Deshaun. I had him at 4-7 without him. And now I'm looking at what it would be 3-3 with him. So, I think that the team is substantially better with Deshaun Watson as the quarterback. If he was to be the quarterback for the entire year, I think that this could be a potential playoff team. But reasonably, I think that this is going to be an 8-9 team.
Okay.
That's going to be my go. I'm going to say 8-9. Or no, I'm sorry. I have them at 7-10. 7-10.
7-10. I've been in the
loss.
I've been in the 6-11 to 7-10 camp. 6-11 feels really safe. Maybe they won 1 game they shouldn't. Gives them that 7th win. But 6-11 feels more just safe, comfortable. Exceed my expectations. Do that, please. But expecting 6 wins and just being 6 wins. I understand there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Your transition, calling it a transition year, cannot be more of an understatement. You're transitioning from a quarter from your previous quarterback to your backup quarterback now. Then hopefully what should be your franchise quarterback late in the season. So transition will be the theme of the year.
Yeah, I mean, this was a move that was always a long-term move. It wasn't a short-term move. It wasn't, we're going to bring this guy in to win the Super Bowl in 2022.
Oh, yeah.
So this is part of the process. It's still going to be fun, or it's still going to be a good year. I don't see this team being a playoff team this season with Deshaun only being there for 6 games. I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. They have so much work to do. Everything would just have to go just right. And I don't the margin for error. I don't see them having that margin for error.
Yeah.
Just because they did it once with Baker doesn't mean they can do it again with someone else. I said it earlier. That's just where we are. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll win some games they should, and they'll lose a lot of games that they should lose as well. That's just where it is.
I think for the most part we're pretty much on the same playing field with how the season's going to play out. But like we both said, we both hope we're surprised. But yeah, temper your expectations for a team that's in a transition year. We're both on the same page with Baltimore winning the AFC North, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to just real quick run through and pick the rest of the division since we picked the AFC North?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so it's going to be quick. I mean, we're going to be on the same page with most of these, I think.
Yeah.
We'll just go through the AFC. AFC East, you got the Bills.
Bills.
Okay, so AFC East, Bills. AFC North, we both have the Ravens. AFC South, this one's a little more interesting. Who do you got for the South? I'm going to take the Colts here.
Yeah, I'm between the Colts and the Titans. I'm gonna go Titans only just to spice things up a little bit here, but mostly just I think Derrick Henry comes back and he's Derrick Henry again. I think they're able to do something that makes them not just look like a dead corpse.
Yeah, I'll say this: if he plays like he played last year, they'll win that division. But being that he plays the running back position, we know how things can go. You can go from one year to the next and be totally different. So that's the only reason I like the Colts in that division. But I'm glad that we have something different there. So I've got the Colts, you've got the Titans, and then let's go to the AFC West. I Chiefs.
You pick the Chiefs until it's not the Chiefs. That's an unfortunate way to look at it, but that's just how it is. I mean, yeah, any one of those teams realistically could win. Let's be real here. I mean, that is the most stacked division in football.
Absolutely. Best division in football. I'd say it's the only division where all 4 teams have a real shot at winning.
Yes, it is. Because they all have, at worst, above average quarterbacks.
Yeah.
At worst.
Right. I think that, a couple teams are going to make the wild card from this division, but I'm going to pick the Chiefs until they're no longer the Chiefs, like you said. So let's go right into the NFC. We'll start with the NFC East. I don't love any of these teams.
I'm going to go Dallas.
You're going to pick the Cowboys?
I'm picking the Cowboys. I know a lot of people love them, some Jalen Hurts and the Eagles this year. I'm just not a Jalen Hurts guy. I'm not. He doesn't move the needle for me. He's just very relatively unexciting.
Yeah, same here. That's going to be a team that's really run heavy, and I just don't. I don't think this is going to be their year. I like the Cowboys as well. I hate to be boring and pick the same team there, but I also like the Cowboys. I just think that they're the best team in that division, roster wise, and usually that's how it plays out. So NFC North. Do you have anyone other than the Packers?
No. Okay. Unless Aaron Rodgers gets weird again. He's getting weirder and weirder as time has gone on.
Oh, goodness gracious. He's on the
Who knows if he takes a mid-season psychedelics break? Who knows?
Yeah. This could go any direction. He could be, he could win the MVP again, or he could just be a total space cadet now and just all in on this whatever new age stuff that he's into.
I love when athletes talk. I love when they're open, they talk about things, but sometimes it's like, maybe take a little break from talking.
Yeah, maybe chill for a while.
Yeah, I know we all love Aaron Rodgers Tuesdays on Pat McAfee show. Okay, but maybe take a break from that a little bit.
Taking himself a little too seriously right now. I'll say that.
There's that, and I don't think Aaron Rodgers becoming into psychedelics seriously was going to be something that actually happened, but it turns out it is, and
that's a real thing. Yeah, I don't know what his plan is in terms of his usage schedule during the year, but hell, if Doc Ellis can throw a no-hitter on LSD, maybe he can put together a decent game on ayahuasca. I don't know.
He's going to be on that Josh Gordon plan, getting
Yeah, exactly. Every day he's getting tested. This year. Let's go NFC South. I've got the Bucks.
It's the Bucks. I mean, again, unless they completely fall apart at the seams with a new head coach and Tom Brady being distracted, I don't see it going any other way.
Yeah,
boring. Whatever. It's just when we've seen this before. As long as there's an established team that's been there. I mean, I know the Bucks aren't really established. It's just they have a ton of really good players, and they won a Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Right, and that roster is still very much together. So it's not like they've completely dismantled that roster. So I think that you got to pick them in that division. If you ask me, if anybody's going to make some noise, I think maybe the Saints, but it's just too big of a risk to pick them for me.
You're not going to go on the the hot take train of picking the Panthers? Oh,
no. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. I don't even think they go 500 this year.
I don't either.
Yeah. Okay. So this is an interesting division, NFC West. It's hard to pick against the Super Bowl champions, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to pick the Rams.
I'm picking the team that plays tonight, so the Rams. Call it boring. It's just sometimes you feel like there's just that clear-cut team that they're going to win.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. To make a baseball comparison, this is the AL West. It's the Astros. Just you pick the Astros until they're done. And
yeah, it's a
that's just
very
what
accurate comparison. And then I guess if you want, do you want to pick Super Bowl winners? And then I think that it's early, obviously, to pick Super Bowl winners.
Sure. Let's say who we think we're going to go to the Super Bowl is going to win.
Okay, so I'm going to go Bills and then Rams. I think that they make it back again. So I got Bills over Rams.
Bills over Rams. Okay, I'm going to the same matchup, but reverse, just because Rams over Bills.
Mm-hmm.
I think Matthew Stafford's going to win again, just to dig that dagger deeper into the hearts of Lions fans everywhere who said he wasn't good enough and gave him stupid nicknames like Stat Padford. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's great. He's tremendous. And I'm glad that you and I both were speaking highly of him before he left Detroit.
I lived in Michigan up until 2018. I lived in Michigan for the bulk of his Lions career. I watched him, and the way they talked about him was just, I'm like, you don't understand. This is the organization that is having the problem. It's not him.
Yeah.
Sure, he has his moments, but the organization is ultimately what's dragging him down. You saw it happen with Barry Sanders. You saw it happen with Calvin Johnson, but you're going to do it a third time and fall into this trap?
Right.
Come on.
I would feel so bad for Bills Mafia if they go 5 Super Bowls in a row.
I do too. Again, I've spoken highly of Josh Allen many times. I like the Bills. They seem to be fun. Okay.
You know what I hate right now is that there's a real chance that Josh Allen could go on a Jim Kelly-esque run. He's that good. He's that good that he's good enough to get them there every year. And football is a hard enough game to win that you could potentially lose it every time you get there as well.
That would just be heartbreaking.
It would. I would hate to see that. That's why I'm picking them to win, because I really do want them to get over that hump.
I would love if the Bills end up winning. I would love to see that happening. If
they lose, though, I'm going to get ahead of the curve. If they lose, I'm going to say they lose 2 in a row.
They're going to go 2 in a row.
They're going to go 2 in a row. They're going to make it back again, and it's just going to suck.
Oh.
But I think they get over the hump this year.
If they lose 2 in a row and the second one's on a wide field goal,
oh man,
that would be rough.
Yeah,
it'd be brutal.
Buffalo fans listening, because that's painful to even think about. But anyway, I think that's a good point to end the show on. I think we previewed the whole NFL. Seems like we're on the same page with a lot of things, but there's a couple things we differ a little bit on. So we'll kind of come back to that at the quarter point of the season, and then again halfway through the season, and take a look.
Do a little progress check. I think that's a good way. Accountability, that matters.
Yeah, and I think that week 1 is just way too early to pick player awards. So why don't we do player awards? We'll do player awards at the quarter point.
Yeah, I think the quarter point's good. Do you have a good idea of which player is coming out of nowhere to play really? Maybe Kyler Murray plays good enough that And
maybe Aaron Rodgers is injured at that point. You don't
know. You really don't know. Maybe the Browns run the ball 40 times a game, and Nick Chubb is already at 1,000 yards 4 games of the season.
Cool. Well, then, I think this is a good natural point to end the show on. We'll see you guys next week, same time, same place. Mm-hmm. Do you have any final thoughts before we go?
Final thoughts, not really. You hope for the Browns to win. Hopefully they snap that streak. And they come home winners. Go Browns.
Go Browns. I think that we're both on the same page that week 1's a winnable game. Nightmare situation to have to face against, Baker Mayfield week 1. But I think that that's a winnable game. So, everybody enjoy the game on Sunday, and we will see y'all on next Thursday.